she turned ranting about Newry into an art form, with Facebook Live propelling Lianne McCooey to local legend status. Her witty observations paved the way for a venture into stand-up comedy. Now Lianne wants to give back with aspirations of a career as a counsellor.
Everything was bad, and then I had this intervention of counselling, and then things weren't so bad. So I would like to have someone who is like me, who's been having a tough time, to have that experience and to go from a place where things are really bad where things aren't so bad.
Yeah.
Because we're all human and we're all trying to get through it.
Lianne, you have a show coming up in December in the Shamrocks.
Yeah.
With hosted, Sean McAleavey's hosting. So
Sean's hosting, yeah.
Speak a bit about that and your transition then. You know, you used to do all the live streams online, and now you're getting on stage and you're being a stand-up
Transition's
comedian.
a funny word. Be careful.
Yeah, okay. And yeah, it is in this day and age it can mean one of many things. But this is purely on a comedic scale here.
There's no gender reassignment involved yet.
Absolutely not.
Yet. I don't know. It did seem to. I suppose it just kind of happened. Like for years, just being like, I don't want to say like the funny one, like, but obviously like there's wit. There's a bit of wit there and a bit of smart arsery and general sarcasm and stuff. And people say, oh, you should do stand up. It
was a natural transition though. Your videos were very observational, you know what I mean? They felt a wee bit like stand-up routines in the sense, and people could relate to certain things in it, about people in the town. You'd pass remarks and somebody driving past, you know what I mean? And they'd be tooting the horn and you'd be saying, you know me, but how am I going to know you? You're driving past, I'm not going to see you type thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I know, I suppose, they were observational. But I mean, there was no like, they weren't contrived. It wasn't like, do you know what, some of them were like, some of them were it sort of, because Facebook Live became this thing that nobody was really utilising, and it was actually somebody from the town that said to me, you should do that, you get more, you get more traction on videos. And then the first one I actually did, I wasn't even, like, my face wasn't even on the video, like, it was just, whatever product, it was like, I don't know, it was a load of sausages or something, and I said something smart about it, and like, you sort of got addicted to the numbers then, and then I put the face on. Yeah. And then it sort of went from there. Yeah. But the stand-up actually came through Darren. Right. Darren Matthews. And he was stuck for a venue, basically. There was another venue that he was using that there had been, an issue with or whatever. And he basically had two comedians for a Saturday night. And on the Thursday, he had nowhere to put them. And I said, listen, if you're bait, come on, have it in my place. What's the worst that could happen? Yeah. And it went really well. It was Mickey Bartlett and Dave Elliott did the first one, and it just went really well. And then from that, it became the wee stand up place that it is.
And then when you had that comedy night, at that point, did you know that you wanted to do stand up yourself?
No, I had done a stand up in the bank. Darren asked me would I do 10 minutes. Right. And I was like, right. And I says, I'll do it for the crack. Because I was getting paid. Yeah. Because I hadn't a shilling. I still don't have a shilling. But how and ever. So did that. And I must have done about 25 minutes. And it wasn't awful, but it was awful. And Darren was just at the back flashing the lights and just like waving his hands, being like, get off. Willie Thompson was there that night as well. And
so at least you had no shortage of material, do you know what I mean?
I think I was just wandering. I was just wandering through it all. And Paddy McDonald slagged me about it like ever since. He was like, here she comes now. Yeah.
Hug the stage.
An hour later. So that was the first one, and then I did doing a couple of MC spots then in McCooey's, or the biggest the weeest big comedy club in the north, or whatever it was that we called it at the time. And then it obviously had transitioned again into the Panic Station comedy club.
And then when you done your first stand-up stint, did you just get up on stage, or did you prepare for it, or did you think about? I don't write. I don't write. Yeah. It doesn't feel right to sit down and contrive something. Like, there's loads of stories that I have in my head that are real stories from, like, working in a pub out in Newton Hamilton from year 10. You're going to see some things, you're going to hear some crazy stuff, and
retain it because it's hilarious.
Yeah.
So, you know, so there's any stories I tell are true.
Yeah.
100% true. But I'm trying to find a way to link them. It's like, you know, our Lord and he's, you know.
Well, the good thing about not writing and going on stage is it all comes naturally then. Do you know what I mean? And it is a big challenge to do that, you know, just to go up and say, you know what, you could, you know, for some people they'll be under a lot of pressure if they didn't prepare or they didn't write or whatever. But then at the same token, you're not on stage trying to remember, oh, is it when am I doing this bit, when am I doing that bit type thing.
It is. It's you have it in your head, and I would run through it, and you know, this here never quits. Like never quits.
Yeah.
So it's always churning away. Oh, the hi-hat's always going, and I try and sort of build it. Say, right, I'll do that, and then you sort of have it in your head. Right, I'm going to go from this to this to this to this, and this is all going to link. And then you get on stage, and because invariably I'm sort of doing MC because I'm comfortable with MC.
Yeah.
Doing a bit of crowd work because that's where your sort of wit comes in, because you know you pick up on something and there'll be a wee vibe out of the crowd. Like last night, for instance, it was quite the crowd. It was a lot of couples, as in like. You know,
so this gig, where was this last night? This was with Paddy McDonald.
No, that was Paddy McDonald was on Friday night in the Point in the Duke, and then on Saturday night last night was in my place with Mark McCartney and Jordan Robinson. Right. So Mark was doing a work in progress spot in my place, so I MC'd, and like I say, it was like couples, like, you know, date night. Let's go and see Wife and Fenton saying really rude things, and, you know, and so it was quite a. Like everybody was on their best behaviour, so there wasn't like there wasn't like a hen night in or a group of lads that were out, you know, to have a swally before they went to the railway or something like that. Yes. So it was quite muted, you know. So people were enjoying it, people were laughing, but there wasn't that, like, you know, it wasn't bawdy. And it's quite the room felt a wee bit cold. So even though whenever people were leaving, you know, it was a brilliant night, it was class, there was a lot of new people there, and, you know, I was getting messages then, you know, after the gig saying really enjoyed it, can't wait for the next one, blah blah blah. When you were standing there and they're all looking at you being like, right, go. I'm like, you know, even though I know what I'm going to say. Yeah. But it's just, it feels weird getting it out there. Like.
Yeah. Where do you think it's, like, can you think back to Newry, say, 10 years ago? You wouldn't never have stand-up comedians. Or, you know, you wouldn't have, you'd occasionally have a comedy night. So where do you think this explosion of popularity's come from? Because it sort of started in Belfast and now it's making its way out to Newry and other places, isn't it? Where it's getting really popular.
You see, in fairness, right, because obviously I was in the Bank back in the day, and there was a comedy night in the Bank on every Thursday. Now this is, you're talking what, 2004, 2005, and it was, you know, comedians more from the south than the north. So the likes of Neil Delamere, like he was MCing that nearly every Thursday night whenever it was on. Dave McSavage was up, Ardal O'Hanlon played. So there was guys like that were doing that, and it went really well. But then it just seemed to peter out a wee bit, you know. For whatever reason, I don't know what the reason was, and it sort of, you know, it just sort of died a wee bit. But then maybe like a bigger venue and stuff like that. Obviously, you didn't have social media back then.
Yes.
You were reliant on posters in the toilets and that kind of thing. You know, like, you know, so it was a different animal. But so I think people tried, but social media and particularly COVID, like, you know, because obviously all these guys were going front and centre with videos and podcasts because that was their outlet. Yeah. And then people were like, "Oh, that's actually funny," and you're like, "Oh, really?"
But the podcast world has opened the doors for the. This is Leanne's dog, by the way. What's your dog's name again?
Santi.
Santi. That's Santi.
It's Ollie.
Ollie shaking himself.
Presumably. Under the table. I hope so.
Yeah, so the podcast really just the floodgates just opened once those big comedians in Belfast started doing podcasts and doing live show. Everything's just snowballed, hasn't it?
Yeah,
really?
just I suppose it was a meeting of minds because, like, you know, they were obviously starved of some sort of outlet for what they were doing, and then people were sitting in the house or, you know, working from home or doing whatever they were doing, and they were mad to consume media of any description. Yeah. And then so the two sort of, like, you know, have batted off each other, and now, you know, there are people saying, like, people come to me talking about, oh, do you do a comedy night? And I'm like, I do, like,
Yeah.
you know, I've been doing it for the last 3 years. Like,
Yeah.
there was a gap for COVID, but I mean, you know, it's been,
Yeah.
oh, right. Do you ever have that boy that be's on the podcast, that Ciaran Bartlett boy? I was like, Ciaran Bartlett's been here 3 times.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You're
yeah.
like, God, you know,
Yeah.
they'll go down the road to the Odyssey and see him. But they're like,
Yeah.
he was here a fortnight ago. Like,
Yes.
and you could have brought your own drink.
Yeah.
You know? So people see what they want to see maybe sometimes, but...
Yeah, but I suppose it, like anything, it takes time to build it up and for it to grow. Can you feel it getting popular?
I'd say we started it, I'd say we were running for a full year before COVID. Full year and a bit, maybe, actually, before COVID. And then, obviously, we waited until the restrictions and all were kind of, you know, freed up well. And then we went into it again. And we've been going ever since. And I'd say there's maybe been, all told, genuinely, about 3 nights that didn't fully sell out.
Right.
And that's it.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
So is that something you want to continue to do? Is continue to, you know, do you see it as a pastime or hobby, or is it something you'd like to pursue?
I think if I could discipline myself, it's something that I could do more of, you know. And when I say discipline myself, actually sitting down and writing it, you know, Peter Kay.
Yeah.
You just assume, you know, until I watched that documentary, I just thought Peter Kay just stands on stage and he just and that's it, out into the ether.
Yeah.
But no, like, you know, he crafted it, he honed it, he studied it.
Yeah.
You know, almost like, you know, like educationally, forensically studied comedy as an art.
Yeah.
And wrote everything down and here we are. He's got that's the fruits of his labour now. So maybe it is okay to sort of contrive it a wee bit.
Yeah. Like there's nothing like getting on stage though, isn't there not? You know, and the experience of that. Like what was your experience like first time on stage, and then what did you learn the more you've done it?
I learned that if Darren Matthews waves his hands at you, you should get off the stage immediately. I think it's always rush, like, you know, it's just a big huge bang of adrenaline and anxiety whenever you step on stage first. And, you know, the first 3 deep of rows, you can see them and you lock eyes with them. And, you know, you really try to not lock eyes with them because you, like, don't want to let them down. You have this intimate gaze with somebody and you're like, oh, I hope you laugh. But I suppose, you know, it has got easier. You know, the more you do, obviously, you know, the easier it gets. And you know what things land and what things don't, generally speaking. But I think, to be a wee bit more, I don't know, to relax. I know that sounds ridiculous, but to relax, because I think they can smell fear off you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? And it's like when you make them laugh for the first time, they all relax then, don't they? You know, it takes the tension out of the room a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, I see. That's something I find quite easy because I tend to use me to disarm. You know,
right.
And like there was one guy that gigged in the bank one time. I forget his name. I'll never remember his name. He's quite a tall guy, long shaggy blonde hair. You know, beard. Looked like a bit of not a goth, like a grunge. He was like a grungy kind of guy.
Yeah.
And you know, his opening 3 or 4 lines was, "No, I'm not a Kurt Cobain tribute act. No, I'm not." I don't know, like something else. You know, and you know, and he immediately basically encapsulated what everybody immediately thought of him, and then everybody just went, oh, you acknowledge that you look like that Kurt Cobain, you know, and that's something that I would do. I'd say, you know, I'll make some reference to, you know, my weight or something like that, and then that sort of, you know, I find that disarms people. Then they go,
So what type of material? You touched on it briefly there when you like to open up your act. What sort of material do you like to do? Is it you talked earlier about stories and old stories of you growing up and stuff?
Yeah, like random people that you meet that are just absolutely mental. That, you know, and they don't realise that they are. You know, and things that happen, because we had a pub back in the day, like 1992 to 1999, and like, you know. One random story, whenever the ceasefire happened, so that's what, 94, 95, and that summer, right? So the ceasefire had happened whenever it did, and you know, Ireland was at peace, as such. And I was standing in my pub in Newtown, and, so I was like, whatever, 14, 15. And there was nobody in it. It was the 12th of July. Right? There was nobody in the place, only me and my granda, right? Granda's drinking bottles and halfings, loving life. And the door opened, and 2 French tourists come in, right?
Right.
Yeah. With cameras and all.
Oh,
and,
right.
Two young lads, and they were looking around the place. You thought they were in Graceland,
Yeah.
And they sat down and like, pint of Guinness,
Yeah.
I was like, no bother, lads, 2 pints of stout up, grand. I was like, he's over on your holidays. And they're like, oh, it's because, no war. It's come to Ireland. And I was like, war's over, mate, war's over, it's great. And, they were cracked away, they were loving it, right? And then a guy landed in, right? And his name is Spider, right? I have no idea what his real name is.
Right.
But his name is Spider. Spider was a gentleman from the Protestant community of Newtown Hamilton. He was totally full as a lord. As you would be on 12th of July.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And he landed in, and I pulled him a pint of harp, grand. All right, Spider, what's the crack? So he went over to these 2 boys, right? Now, he's completely unintelligible, right? You did no idea. And he wanted to buy them a drink. And they were like, no. I was like, they're grand, they're in company. Leave them boys alone, Spider, all right. And then he started getting thick. And he was like, take a drink of a Protestant man on the 12th of July. And you could see them being like, nerd. I was like, it's all right, lad. They went every shade of white that you can imagine, right? So, and then my granddad just looked at me and he was like, so I had to put him out. I had to put Spider out on the road.
Jesus.
I was like, get out. I was like, leave them boys
Well, that
alone.
was some experience for them, wasn't it? I mean,
It was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was hilarious for me.
Yeah.
Because I knew there was no malice on it, but these guys thought they were getting black bagged at the border. Very funny.
And the political, they wouldn't get the 12th of July. They wouldn't get any. They're just completely.
They had no idea. They thought they were coming over to some blissful, new utopian Ireland.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
Protestant
There's
Catholics
leprechauns running about now.
Yeah, we're all like, we're friends again.
Yeah.
And then the lad and this imposing 6 foot tall alcoholic was like, at them.
Brilliant. So, how often do you run your nights then? Your comedy night? Once a month. And when? Is it random dates every month or?
It's the last Saturday of every month. There might be a wee Brucey bonus like there was there last night.
Right.
That was just because the guys that come down have a good experience. Because, I know I said there, like the room felt like it was a wee bit cold. Generally speaking, they get a great reception. The crowd are up for it. They're friendly. No one, touch wood, no one has died on stage.
Right.
Aaron Butler fell off it.
Oh, right.
But no one has died. No one's had a bad reaction or tumbleweeds or anything like that. So the guys that are coming down know that they're going to get a good experience, and that makes them want to come then.
Yeah.
And the likes of William Thompson, Dave, Mark last night have doing these wee work in progress shows because they know it's friendly. And then that's prepping them then for the likes of the Limelight or the Ulster Hall or wherever. And Shane Todd was down as well.
Yeah, so they'll try out new material and stuff, won't they?
Yeah, because they know that the Newry people are kind, which is kind of strange. But they're a kind audience.
So where can people get the tickets then for these shows?
Eventbrite.
Right.
Just stick it all on Eventbrite.
Eventbrite, Comedy McCooey's.
Panic Station.
Panic Station Comedy Club every month. So do you think that your live streaming then and the videos that you did were a good segue then into stand-up comedy, in the sense that people knew who you were, and when you got on stage people go, oh, there's Lianne McCooey, and it's not like, who's Lianne McCooey? Do you know what I mean? Do you think that helped you when you started doing stand-up?
Yeah, it did, of course. But I mean, there's no way you can ask that question without sounding like a narcissist,
Yeah,
the videos took on a life of their own. It was very strange, but again, I think it's because I get in first in the town, in that very local sort of parochial area.
Yeah.
And it was nothing anybody had really seen before. People, I'm trying to sort of quantify this properly. People that hadn't been, familiar with YouTube and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So older people.
Yeah.
And when I say older, I mean people maybe in their 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s. At that stage, Facebook was their first port of call for for a social network.
Yeah.
You know, and if they saw anything on Facebook, A, it was true, B, it was brilliant, C, you know, and that was,
there was a real
loyal to it.
Yeah, there was in that community of people, there was a real excitement around. There was like Facebook, wasn't there? It's just like, oh, you know, posting things, and now it's like it's completely different. It's just so normal now that people just see Facebook as Facebook. Whereas, as you said, like the people that were getting excited about Facebook at that stage, younger people had experienced it already 3, 4, 5 years earlier, and they've probably moved on to something else, like Instagram or whatever.
And they would have had Bebo, and they would have had all on MySpace and that. So they had worked their way up, and you know, Snapchat, Instagram. Like there would have been a lot of content on Snapchat as well. Yeah. You know.
So there was a big novelty in that you putting them videos out, wasn't there? In the sense that nobody's seen it before. You know what I mean? And I experienced it too. And early videos we put them out.
Yeah.
You know
but well, like even you know the train spotting one that you did.
Yes.
That sort of comes around every so often.
Yeah,
and it gets reshared and stuff, and I would get tagged in it. Yeah. You know, and you know, it takes on, it gets another wee burst of life.
Yeah, because there's something. It was just one of those where every 5 seconds there was something in it that somebody could relate to. You know, in the town, it was just like quick fire.
People love that, like, because you know what I know is it's probably like a community thing. You know. Oh, there's, you know, Tommy Lamb or Marty Bogrove or, you know, all these characters, and you sort of feel a part of it. Yeah. But yeah, that sort of 2016, 2017 explosion of nonsense. And like, I look back at a lot of that and cringe some of the stuff that I did. Because that was effectively me taking like 40% of my personality. Yeah. 30%, maybe 30-40% of my personality, which is that, and amplifying it, you know, like really just ramping it up and putting it out there. And then, you know, whenever people see that as it is, they go, well, that's what that girl is, that's who she is, that's what she is, that's what her MO is. Yeah. Or HOMO. And to see that, and then they assume that's, you know, that typifies me, which it didn't. You know, and that was a hard circle to square for people. Yeah. You know, because they'd come in, like, it's so weird. Like, you know, at one stage there was people coming in because of the videos, which was great. And from a business perspective, in a way, that was class, because people were like, oh, I saw your video. I didn't realise what this place was. I didn't realise this was a cafe. I didn't realise you did this type of food. I didn't know anything about this place. And then I thought, I have to come and see this girl that's making jokes on Facebook. Yeah. And, you know, so there was a kind of a bang of business out of it. Yeah. Short term and more long term. Yeah. But people were coming in to see this outrageous person who was making jokes and that. And I wasn't. Like, I was in behind the counter, you know, can I get you a menu? Yeah. You know, or I was down the back making coleslaw or something like that. You know? People
are expecting that happened to me whenever I'm out, you know, and people see me for the first time and whatever, and go, you know, from the Taxi Joe videos or whatever, and when they meet me, they expect Taxi Joe, you know. Yeah. And it's just like, they don't, they're waiting for me to start going on like Taxi Joe, and it's like, no, that's. Yeah, I don't go on like that, thankfully. Do you know what I mean?
So it was weird, because it was almost like I had like a parody character enmeshed within me.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's different. I was hiding behind a sort of a disguise, whereas with you it was you. So people had for more reason probably thought that's who you were really like.
Yeah. So there was a sort of element of disguise too. Like, it's a strange one. Because like at that time, like, I wasn't having a great time myself. I don't want to say mentally, but there was different bits and pieces going on. Yeah. And different wee pieces of, you know, like hurt and things that were endemic, you know, all along throughout the sort of from early life. And at that stage of the game, a great way to sort of push that down, just keep that out of the way, was to be this big, bright, bombastic character that people, you know, there was instant gratification there. Yeah. People, me being funny. Yeah. And people going, "You're funny." Yeah. Me going, "Ha." Yeah. Happy days.
Yeah. You know. Yeah, and you touched on something interesting there. Like, Matthew Perry passed away there a couple of weeks ago, and he was always struggling with mental health issues. And you were saying like it was like a good outlet for you to do them videos and to forget about other things.
Yeah.
Do you think like, because interesting thing what he said was when he thought that what he needed and what he wanted in life was fame, and then when he got it, things got worse for him.
Yeah.
Do you think like it's good to be in a good place before you expose yourself like that, where you're not getting to you're not doing what's going to solve the core issue at hand?
I think,
and the core issue at hand can get worse. You know, you always see like Jim Carrey and all these people that gravitate to comedy.
Yeah.
And it's to hide something in their lives too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, to a degree. But I mean, like when it comes to comics and comedians and stuff like that, and you know, or funny people, you know, it's a really handy skill to have in terms of making friends, and that's something that I would have, you know, leaned on heavily. Like, it's a lazy way to make friends. Yeah. And when I say make friends, I mean get approval. You know, if you can say something that elicits a reaction. Yeah. And laughter is obviously a positive reaction. Then boom, and it's a transaction. You know. Yeah. So I probably would have went quite hard and heavy with being the fat funny friend, because you know there was instant reward there, and I think maybe once you do that and you get the reward, then you know do you continue, do you perpetuate this, you know,
that's
funny
it. That's
thing?
you've nailed it there. Yeah.
And then there's that pressure that you know, and it's not coming from anybody else. It's not put on you. It's your own. It's your own stuff.
And you're saying something interesting earlier on about the way, you know, you're putting the videos up and then the likes and shares and all go, and you get lost in the metrics of it.
You do. You're right that you get lost in the metrics of it, and you know anything that was less than your previous, you're like, oh, what did I do wrong there? You know, and like you sort of get very insular thought-wise about it, because you're like, well, hold on a minute, this is the internet. Yeah. There's hundreds and thousands and millions and pieces of media and stuff like that that's there for consumption. Yeah. You are only one, you know, like your 3 minutes of whatever it is so infinitely small and meaningless. Yeah. You know, you need to get a bit of perspective about it, but then it's hard to get that perspective whenever it's your...
when it's coming from you,
baby, you know,
well, for me, the best thing for me doing stuff is I do it because I want to do it and I like to do it, you know, and that's where it always comes from. Do you know what I mean? And if people like it, it's a bonus. Yeah. You know, rather than having that as the focus. Oh, I want people to like this. Yeah.
You know, there's so much less content coming from me now. So much less. But anything that there is, it's maybe more authentic. You know, it's definitely more authentic than it was. And as if I don't feel like I'm performing, and I'm trying to elicit a reaction. You know, most of the videos that I'm doing now are like informative.
But like, were stationed where your shop is? It's sort of like in the middle of Newry, isn't it? So but you know what I mean. But it's like anything that happens in the town, it's a great spot to sort of be on the pulse. You know what I mean, when you're doing your live streams. Yeah, you know what I mean, because there's always something happening on Monaghan Street, or there's something happening in the car park beside you, or whatever.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Monaghan Street's a busy street. It's not as highbrow as Hill Street.
Yeah,
you know, doesn't have that looming presence of the cathedral, just as Duns.
Absolutely. So what made you decide to open a coffee shop then?
Honestly,
yeah.
I didn't know what else to do. I would have great talent for, or would have had a great talent for embedding myself into, you know, these sort of lengthy schemes that eat up brain space, right? So whether that was like the time worked in the bank, would have worked like mental hours, loved every second of it, just would have lived, breathed, ate, slept, died for it. Yeah. And then, you know, come away from that, wee bit lost. Then I went on a weight loss spree. running and doing, you know, I did a marathon and stuff like that. Again, a lot of time, a lot of energy, you know, and then the next thing was, right, I'm going to open my own place here.
Yeah.
You know, and...
So do you always need to be at something? Do you always need to be stimulated do you always need to be doing something? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I would be a thinker, like, you know, massively so. And I sort of referred to there, like, I would have had... I don't want to use the term struggle, right? Because, you know, I've had experience of depression for like years. And when I say years, I mean years.
Yeah.
Like years, early teens. And I suppose it's hard to know where to put it. It's hard to know, you know, there are things in this life that, you know, that you can't change and that you have to accept and you have to roll with the punches. But that's very difficult to do. It's also very difficult to do if you don't understand why things have happened the way they have. And if you can't sort of make peace with that, and not even make peace, but just to understand it and then go, right, okay, this is what, you know, that's grand. I get it. Not happy about it.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I'll leave it there and I'll go and I'll do my own thing or whatever. But I have that understanding now and I have that resolution as such now, but I didn't have it for years and years. And when you don't have it, you need to find an outlet to push that, just to keep that away from me. Because I don't really know what's going on there, but I'm going to do this instead and it's going to, you know, be class and I'm going to, you know, and again, being funny on Facebook, you know, doing this cafe thing, like I didn't open a business there. Like that was not a business. I am the worst business person ever. HMRC can testify to that I am a really bad business person. But I'm a people person. Yeah. And I think looking back now, I didn't open a business, but I opened somewhere.
Alright, so you could have your own community type thing.
Yeah, somewhere to belong.
Yeah.
You know.
But it's interesting what you said there that you figured things out. I had an experience myself where there was an element of my life that I couldn't understand and I couldn't get it. I couldn't figure it out. Do you know what I mean? And then I went to therapy for like 6 weeks and boom, got it. It was just, the therapist just went, you do this because of that. And I was just like, what? It's just like, wow. Because what was annoying me was I couldn't figure it out. And then when you get someone else telling you, you know, which is, you know, I'd highly recommend anyone, you know, to do therapy or whatever, just to understand.
Interesting segue. But anyway,
yeah, we'll get there. But I'd highly recommend anyone do it because it's amazing what they can reveal to you about your life that you didn't know. Do you know what I mean? And I got that. It was just a small thing that I could finally make sense of something, and it was like 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. And since then, it's been great. Do you know what I mean? I just understand it now.
Yeah. See, it's the understanding. And, like, a therapist, you know, a good therapist isn't going to, you know, they're not going to diagnose you and say, right, listen to what you've said and go, right, this is your problem here. Yeah. This is what you need to do. And, you know, go and do it. On the best of good luck to you. That's not really how it works. They will suggest, they'll listen to your story. Yeah. And they sort of repeat it back to you. Yeah. And I think in hearing your own story from a stranger who has no ties to you, no obligation to you, realistically, you know, you could say, like, this person doesn't care about you. Yeah. Now, they care enough to have went and studied and spent money and become a membership of a body and do all that stuff. They care enough about the whole thing to do those things. But really and truly, that person that you're talking to owes you nothing. You owe them nothing. And it's a very pure relationship in the room where they are literally there just to hear your story. Yeah. And to sort of help suggest to you that you already know what the answer is and that the understanding is there somewhere, but it's just in this fog. And they sort of try and help.
They clear the fog, don't they?
Dissipate that fog. You know, or it's like...
But it's so important. It's so important to talk to people. You know, talk to friends and family, of course. That's what they're there for. But it's so important to talk to someone sometimes that doesn't know you and doesn't have, like, any bias or any leaning towards certain elements of your life. Do you know what I mean? Somebody that does not know you can objectively tell you what's going on, you know, whereas some people that are invested in your life maybe can't do that as well.
Yeah, see, that's it. You know, when it depends on your, you know, approach to things as well, and your approach to yourself. You could sit down with a good friend and pour your heart out to them, and they could say, listen, you know, you're so hard on yourself. You know, I love you. You're beautiful. You're a good person. You're all that blah 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 blah. You know, and suggest things to you that'll help, and things that maybe are true. But you know, your sort of thought process could be, well, they're only saying that because they're my friend. They're not going to tell me something bad about me. Because they don't want to hurt my feelings. Yeah. Whereas,
and then you can get it the reverse as well. You know, if someone tells you the truth, then you can take it personally because there's that, you've got that relationship. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you can say, well, they're just saying that because, you know, they're raging about something else that happened, or, you know, or who are they to say that to me because I know that they're having this problem, that problem, whatever. Whereas when you go into somebody and it's literally just a blank screen, and, you know, you have someone there that's warm and that is treating you with respect. You know, they don't care where you come from, who you are, what your gender, your race, your creed. They don't care anything about that. They're there to listen to whatever's in here. This is the story, and they want you to get it out, and let's go.
So this is a nice segue then into the new career you're looking to develop for yourself then. Yeah. So you've been training to be a counsellor, is that right?
Yeah, indeed.
So tell us about that.
As I said, like, all along, I've had peaks and troughs of happiness and sadness and you know, the depths, you know, and like from about 14 years of age, like that's probably an approximation, like, but it's fairly accurate. And I've tried loads and loads of different things. I've tried them over the years. Antidepressants here and there, you know, online CBT. Different things, you know, these things that, you know, are suggested, and nothing really worked, you know. And I like, don't get me wrong, I think it was like 2015, 2016, I had a major low, and I just couldn't get off the sofa. I couldn't do it. I was crying, just the weepies, the whole lot, and it wasn't a crisis point, but I'd had enough, like.
Yeah.
You know, I probably wouldn't have had the wherewithal or the courage to, you know, to take that next step. But I was sort of saying, will someone up there just do this for me? Just take me out of this, because I can't be doing with it. Like, it's just nothing's working, nothing's right, nothing feels right, nothing fits. It's just not working. Maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah.
Life is just not for
was
me.
it just everything in life in general was just getting you down, was it?
Yeah. But I mean, there was stuff carried up from you know, family trauma, troubles related, and it can define you, you know, even though you weren't there for it, and you maybe didn't, you know, you literally you weren't there for it, you weren't even born. The after effects of that grief it permeates, you know, it taints things.
Yeah.
Taints everything.
Well, it's ingrained in our culture, isn't it?
100%.
And byproduct of that is, you know, people from this country don't really talk about their feelings. They don't talk about things. They bottle stuff up, don't they?
I think, you know, from listening to different people and knowing sort of own experience of the family, Northern Ireland, the North, whatever you want to call it, it's just such a special animal, where there's been just this litany of hurt that's been going on for so long, and it makes people not want to take ownership of their own stuff, because, do you know what, such and such has it so much worse. I don't feel that I can offload, or I don't feel that I can cry about my problems because such and such lost a child, or such and such lost maybe 2 or 3 children, you know, and we sort of keep that all to ourselves because we think that we can't, you know, that our problems aren't as worthy, and there is a hierarchy of just awfulness, you know, and objectively you can sort of say, like, you know, I understand that, but at the end of the day, there's only one you, and there's only one me, and it doesn't really matter what you've went through and what I've went through. When we come together, we are going through it. I don't know how you feel because I'm not you.
Yeah.
And vice versa. And that's, I know it sounds very simplistic and people can say it sounds, you know, dismissive almost, but it's true. Like it is true. Like I fully believe, because people talk about mental health and you know, it's everything's, you know, they're talking about, it's always mental health. And I've been doing like workshops and stuff in my place as well, sort of, you know, tying into this whole, you know, concept of telling your story, acknowledging your hurts and all that stuff. And I say, like, there's nothing wrong with you mentally, unless you have a mental illness, unless you have a diagnosed, you know, actual mental illness. That's different. But I think a lot of people's mental health is actually spot on, because the hurt and the sadness, to me, this is only my opinion, is in here. It's in the soul.
Yeah.
So it's in that bit of you that you can't see and you can't touch, but it's there because you can feel it's there. And because the body is an amazing thing and the human being is an amazing thing, this here kicks in to protect this, right? So some people say, when I'm pointing to here, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where I feel, if I have any stress or trouble or anything like that, I feel it in my stomach.
Yeah.
Strangely. Some people feel it here. Some people feel it here.
Yeah.
You know, it varies, like, but I think a lot of people feel it in the gut. But the brain will do everything it can to protect you from that hurt.
Yeah.
And they'll do that by making jokes. For me, it's making jokes or working hard, you know, like really throwing myself into something to avoid, you know, to keep that hurt at bay.
And so when you were feeling in that, when you were in that situation, you were feeling really, how did you get out of that?
I went to my GP, obviously.
Yeah.
It's your first port of call.
Yes.
So I got antidepressants. And he was like, right, let's do this. And I was like, mate, and we taking antidepressants. And he was like, listen, you're low on serotonin. There's serotonin in these.
Yeah.
Bob's your uncle. Come back to me in 2 weeks, and then we'll look at what to do next in terms of getting you to a place where, you know, you're not going to need this, you know, this, you know. So I did that, and then the antidepressants made me feel better, so I kept taking them, but it didn't actually do any work on the root cause.
Yeah.
Possibly because I didn't know what it was, you know. So even with medication and stuff like that, which is great, and it absolutely does help to lift that fog off you a wee bit, to allow you to go and do what you need to do, you know, to sort of heal.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I just kept her lit. But then it comes back.
Yeah. So it's just that the drugs are just like a suppression, really, aren't they? You know, the suppress things.
I wouldn't say they suppress things, but they do, you know.
They don't go, you know, they don't delve into you and figure out what the core thing is and then fix that. They don't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not to say that they're a placebo. Obviously, that, you know, they do what they do. I still take antidepressants today, even though I've done a lot of stuff. I did, you know, I went through a period where I sort of weaned myself off, with help from my GP. Obviously, you do that in agreement with him or her, and sort of thought, let's try a life without venlafaxine at that stage, and life without it was not great, you know. So the weepies sort of came back, and then we sort of made the decision, right, let's reintroduce, you know, a different type. So that's a different conversation, really. But the key thing was eventually I went to counselling. Now I had tried it before, and I didn't have a great relationship with the first counsellor that I went to. Yeah. I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel respected. I didn't feel supported, right? And that could have been a very crystallising moment where I would just say, do you know what? Counselling doesn't work. Yeah. Counselling does work.
Yeah. But you need to get the right fit, don't you?
100%. Yeah. So, you know, for somebody that has had an experience that isn't good, that's must be awful. But I would urge people to not let it put them, you know, not to put off the whole concept of counselling. You know, sometimes you just, as you say, you just don't get the right fit. Luckily, whenever I engaged them with PIPs in 2018, I did get the right fit. The counsellor was fantastic, and the work that we did, now, albeit it was short term enough, it was I think it was 8 weeks, And, you know, there was a lot of understanding there. If you understand why you do what you do and you behave the way you behave, even if it's bad, if you understand why, then you can go, oh.
Yeah, that changed my life, that.
Okay. Everybody's on about goal setting and, you know, problem management and, you know, this, that and the other, and intentions and gratitude and, you know, goals. Everything's about goals.
Yeah.
Like, calm down.
In terms of your studying then, how has that all gone?
Good. I mean, it was something that I started, you know, because I'd had such a good experience with PIPs now. I'd been to PIPs a couple of times. Again, not coming from a place of crisis, but they provide X amount of sessions, counselling sessions that are free, which is why I'd always encourage people to support PIPs, and
yes.
I would myself. The experience that I had there was great, and I could see a lot of me in other people, and I want people to have the experience that I've had, because it's been, I don't want to say liberating because that sounds ridiculous, but it is liberating.
Yeah.
You know, whenever you go from having, you know, 1,000 million horrible thoughts prodding you every, you know, like we flies hitting me all the time, you know, day on day for years.
Yeah.
And then you don't have as many of them.
Yeah.
Or they're maybe only hitting you a couple of days a week. The extra energy that you have is unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, to enjoy things, to enjoy good things. So I went and did, so this is all through SRC, or the tech, if you want to call it that. So level 2 counselling skills, and then level 4, so that was Ulster University through the tech, and then we're sort of halfway through level 5 now, which is giving you that sort of clinical fitness to practice.
Okay.
So it's been going well. I mean, it's been ongoing now for nearly 3 years. I've met, you know, a lot of really cool people through it. I've made friends, which is weird for me, because I didn't go into it thinking to myself, oh, I'm going to, you know, get mates here, but invariably you do, because you know.
Yeah, well, you're drawn to the same thing, obviously.
Yeah.
Why did your struggles in earlier years, is that sort of what drew you to being a counsellor?
It's the, I don't want to say the redemption arc or the growth arc, but it was the fact that, you know, everything was bad. And then I had this intervention of counselling, of being counselled and understanding stuff. And then things weren't so bad. So I would like to have someone who is like me, who's been having a tough time and blah, 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 to have that experience and to go from a place where things are really bad, where things aren't so bad.
Yeah.
Because we're all human and we're all trying to get through it. I meet a lot of people week on week, and there are so many people that I deal with and come to that hatch that have like a variety of different things going on, and you would never know. And you can have these wee sort of stolen moments of conversation where that hurt that they're having or that difficulty leaks out a wee bit unknown to them, and I can see it. I'm not trying to say I'm some kind of I'm not Mystic Meg, like, but you know, to me, I can see it quite clearly. And sometimes, you know, I might broach it with somebody, and it is as simple as saying, "Are you all right?
Yeah,
Is everything okay?"
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll get and then you're like, "Right, that's okay. That's grand." You know, just, you know.
Yeah.
And then you'll get somebody that's like, "No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not okay."
Yeah.
Or, you know, they mightn't say it as say it like that, but they'll say, "Oh, such and such is going on," right? And they'll tell you this, you know, you'll get a little snapshot of a story, and it's really awful.
Yeah.
And they don't even realise when they're saying it how awful it is, because again, we're in that thing where we're like, "Oh, sure, you have to get on with it. Oh, sure, you know, you have to keep going and you have to such blah 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 blah," all that Northern Irish humility, and you're like, God, person, like, how are they even getting around? But that being asked, "Are you all right?" or getting that wee bit of kindness, I think sort of helps a wee bit, you know, that
Yeah.
they feel that that somebody sort of acknowledges, you're having a tough time.
Yeah.
Look after yourself.
I remember seeing a video of you. It was about a year ago. You're beside the Christmas tree in Hill Street.
Yeah.
So was that like? You remember you were talking earlier on about it was like your early videos were like a persona. Was that like you? Like was that like
Yeah.
you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I was talking about Declan.
Yeah.
I sort of shocked myself for that one actually. But I did try and hold it together as best I could.
But it was a lovely video. It was, and when you make something like that and it comes from the heart, people really respond to it, don't they?
They did. It did get a massive response. Now that was something that I sort of been you know, conscious of it, that obviously me and Declan were great mates, right?
Yeah.
But he'd been in Newry for a long time before I come along, and obviously he was very, very, very loved by, you know, his friends, his family, and you know, and the business community and all those things, and you know, sometimes it felt a wee bit wrong of me to like take ownership, you know, because obviously he you know, everybody owned a wee piece of Declan,
Yeah.
and he was delighted about that. But we always did that video coming up to Christmas where he'd basically come over to me and be like, can you do a video for the Christmas charity thing? I've told the committee that you're going to do it, and blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, all right, you know, and would do something, you know, semi-ridiculous, whether it was over in his shop or he'd come over to me or whatever, be like, guys, throw in toys, you know, we're going to be in the Canal Court on Thursday night steaming, raising money and all that sort of stuff, and would do that, and it'd be great. And then that was the first year, because obviously he passed away in October, and I was like, one of the last things that he sort of said, he had sent, we would have been messaging and stuff quite regularly, and he had said, I said to him at one stage, is there anything I can do? You know, because this man, you know, was at that point, you know, very ill, right? And his illness had, you know, had been well managed and and enduring, and you know, he really did keep the bright side out and stuff, even though like there were times, you know, when I looked through the messages, you know, where he referred to being in pain quite a bit, like, you know, and almost, it was only whenever I went back and I looked at them and I was like, oh my God, like there's so many times this man said he was in pain, physical pain, like, and I said to him, is there anything I can do? Like, I feel helpless here, that I can't fix this, I can't take this away, and, you know, is there anything I can do? And he said, keep me alive in people's minds.
Right? Yeah.
The ultimate narcissist himself, right? The ultimate ego. Keep you alive in people's minds. So I was like, right, I need to do this video. He is guilted me into it. So I did it. And yeah, it did resonate, like, but it was 100% from the heart.
Yeah, and the fact that it was coming up to Christmas, you were beside the big beautiful Christmas tree. I can't believe I'm saying this about Newry, but it was a beautiful, massive Christmas tree, and the lights on it looked amazing and all. It was a beautiful video, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and a 20-stone crying lesbian. I was like, because I even say that, because that's the sort of relationship that we had, where, like, if he had been standing, or if he had been doing like a Mufasa in the sky, he would have been like, you did this purposefully to make people cry, McCooey. You've stood in front of that tree. You've waited until it started to rain for maximum sympathy points. You know, and I did sort of have a wee laugh about that, because that's the sort of humour we would have had with each other. Like, you know, very, very self-deprecating and very, very self-aware. And he would have loved that. He would have been howling with laughter at that. The fact that it started to cry that it started to rain and I was crying. Like, he'd have been like.
So in regards to your counselling, then where do you see that going?
I'll be starting to take clients very soon. So I'm on the lookout for a wee room like this, right? Somewhere in the town where, again, you can have that nice sort of private, confidential space that's warm and inviting, and it allows people to get the stuff out. Doing that, maybe do a wee bit online. I'm hoping that I can reconcile it in people's minds, that even though I might do a bit of stand-up comedy, that, you know, that the sanctity of that counselling relationship in a room is absolutely sacrosanct.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that might be difficult for people, because, you know, there is that perception of me as joker, clown, egot, says, you know, would say anything, would do anything, blah, 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 blah. And again, that is very much, it's not a misconception, but it's overinflated by my own hand, you know, back in the days of those ridiculous videos, you know, so, but it is what it is. But, so that's, if I can square that circle with people, that'll be the good thing. Yeah, I'm sure
you'll do that, no problem. I mean, and you've got the tools, the social media outlet to do it, and the videos you do where they come from the heart and you're very, very genuine and stuff like that, people will respond to that pretty quickly. And
the people who get it.
Yeah.
Maybe because they want to. And the people who don't get it, they won't get it. And that's fine.
Yeah.
That's grand. I understand that. And no one person in that scenario is better or worse than the other.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, like if there's 80,000 people or whatever it is in the sort of Newry and Mourne area, you know, somebody's going to get it.
Yes.
You know, and that's great, and I hope they do.
So where are you at now with your own life? Are you in good place?
Yeah, good.
That's good.
A lot of work going on, a lot of work to do, and just sort of taking it each day as it comes. Seeing out the end of the year, just busy. A lot of comedy stuff coming up. I think me and Darren might be doing, by my own suggestion, like a double headliner.
Oh, right,
where I might actually have to stretch out.
Oh, so you'll have to do like a full set?
30 minutes of crowd work.
So when are you planning this then?
That's the end of December.
Brilliant.
It's going to be called Anxious and Panicky.
Right, so you've heard it here first. It's not official yet though, is it?
It is. I just have to pluck up the cojones to do the ticket link and start writing stuff.
Right, okay. So there you go. So end of December.
Yeah.
I'll definitely go to that. Headline act.
Me and him are doing...
With the two, you and Darren doing a headline, that'd be fantastic. So Darren's done brilliant, hasn't he?
Listen, Darren's doing the SSE with Paddy McDonald, and he's done his own headline shows before in the likes of the Deer's Head, Black Box, places like that.
Yeah.
So he's old hat this, so I'm kind of riding on his coattails.
Right.
You know, his act now, like he's like he knows what he's about, but
he's doing stand up 3 or 4 times a week, every week. And you see that in his work. It's he's brilliant on stage.
And he's been doing it for years. Like he's doing it for 10, 12 years now at this stage.
And so tickets, I imagine, would be Eventbrite again, would it? And do you know where you're having it yet?
In my place.
Oh yeah, of course.
Hello. Unless the ticket sales outstrip everything.
Unless the SSE.
Yeah, we're going to the town hall. And we'll have Ladies of Laughter as well the night before or the night after. I'm not sure which. So that's an all female gig. Theresa Livingston, Yasmin Sierra, and I'm MCing and stuff like that. So that's also good as well. So that's coming up at the end of December as well. There's a lot going on. Brilliant. Well, I flash all that up on the podcast. Yeah. Bad here, etc. All good. Thank you very much for coming in today, Lianne. It's been great. A fantastic discussion. I'm delighted you came in. It's been great. And Driv. Yeah, Driv. Absolutely. To Belfast. Yeah, to Belfast. I really appreciate it. I love meeting your dog as well. Yeah, well, I'm glad he was semi-well. He seems to be conked out. He is conked out. He's probably bored. You can keep him here for the night if you want. No, you're all right. Thanks very much. All right, sir. Until next time, see you after.